હવે હું ઘરનું કામ તો કરીશ જ, પણ તમારી જોડે આખી દુનિયાએ જોઈશ.
Okay, so જ્યારે ગુજરાતી ફિલ્મ આવે અને મને જ્યારે ખબર મળે કે ઈ ફિલ્મ યુકેમાં પ્રીમિયર થવાનું છે, I think I am the most happiest. And the fact that it's a very special film called Kutch Express that is premiering at UK Asian Film Festival. Huge congratulations to the film's producer and actor Manasi Parekh, and of course the lead star herself, Ratna Pathak Shah. So warm welcome to you and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We're so excited.
I am just as excited. I've been so eager for audiences to finally see this film, and it is such a beautiful, beautiful movie. So I think, kudos goes to all of you. But Ratna Ben, I'm going to begin with you, actually, as she's sipping her tea. Apologies. Right. So, I saw Baiji, and, it instantly reminded me of the stature of your mother, Dina Pathak. When she used to play these very strong characters, I literally felt her voice. I felt that parchai within you, actually. So tell me, what aspects, if any, of Dina Ji's really helped you to grasp the milieu and personality traits of the role?
I'd like to say that I felt Ma sort of sitting on my shoulder and prodding me every once in a while. I heard her prods and followed them once in a while and didn't at other times. My Ma has been a huge influence on my work, of course. She was the first actress I saw closely. And I saw her on stage, which is quite another kettle of fish altogether. Dina Gandhi and then Dina Pathak on stage was something else. She really was a force of nature. She was quite spectacular. Hindi films, of course, never gave her that opportunity. Hindi films require a very limited band of personalities. So she got stuck in, mommy standing around in the back, crying copiously. Yeah. But Ma was very much more than that. And I really feel sorry that she wasn't around when films like this are being made. She deserved films like this. Unfortunately, those were different days. These kind of films were not being made. And I feel her blessing with me. Okay, theek hai, I couldn't do it. You girls do. So Supriya and I both have been getting rather interesting work and doing the kind of work that my mom would have loved to do.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's quite interesting you say that, because even in Happy Family, I thought, which I really loved, by the way, I think it's one of my favorite shows on Prime Video currently.
Thank you.
Again, it was a very nice representation of a bar, which I quite enjoyed watching as well. So I think well done, I think, on both these titles that you've done. But I think contrary to Baiji, Mongi Mansi is a character that is dutiful yet silently ambitious. I remember we had this little chat after I watched the film, and it was very interesting how literally it wasn't a gopivo. She had her own sort of astuteness. She had her own desires. So as an actor, how challenging was it for you to balance that duty and ambition in these characters and present it so simply?
I think for me, Mongi, she was a very regular girl. She's the kind of woman who, if she sat in a room full of 4 to 5 people, people might not even notice her. She was that kind of a woman, not with a very strong presence, so to speak, but still this thread that kind of holds the family together, and is so devoted to her family. And she's very different from me in so many aspects. And I think I kind of modeled that persona and that character on a lot of my family members. It's a mixture of a lot of my family members that I've seen over the years, the mannerisms, the physical attributes that people, especially in small towns, have. And I was very particular to also make sure that none of my urban physicality comes through when I'm playing her. But yes, Mongi was, I love the fact that she was such a silent voice. Like, there was a voice, but it was very silent.
Yeah.
And I think that was interesting for me to kind of play.
Right. Every family has a Mongi. Every family doesn't have a Baiji, but every family has a Mongi. I mean, I find Mongi extraordinary because she is a representation, like Mansi said, of so many women in my family and so many women I know.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And I think, it's very rare to see female producers in Gujarati cinema. But Mansi, I must congratulate you and really tell you, you are a trailblazer in that sense. So tell me one thing. What factors do you actually consider when choosing to back projects, and what gives you strength in coping with harsh circumstances like the pandemic? Because from what I remember, I think as this film was about to go on shoot, the second lockdown was announced, right?
Oh my God, this film has seen so much. It's been made in the most tumultuous of times in the history of modern world, so to speak, because it was conceived at the time of the first lockdown. We were going to go on the floors, and then the second lockdown was announced, and then we were all over the place. So, to kind of hold fought and to have that patience and the strength that no, we have a good script and we are going to be making it, just the timing has to be right, was something that of course Parthiv and we were holding on to. But to answer your question about what drives me to choose a particular script, I think Gujarati cinema is now in a very exciting phase because it's a very young industry. It's just like a decade old, so to
Yes.
speak, new industry that I'm talking about with the new makers. And there are so many incredible stories out there. But what happens is in the commercial Gujarati industry, a lot of the stories are very either they're centered around the patriarch of the family, and it's a very family comedy kind of a setup, or it's a rom-com. People don't really delve into too many different aspects of the storytelling. With Kutch Express, a lot of people told us, "Arey, y'all are making a mainstream film. There's no hero, so to speak. It's two female protagonists. How is this film going to work commercially?" And we believe that it's a good story that should be told, and that's the conviction with which we went ahead with the story, because why not? You know.
For sure. And I think also what it does is that it debunks the whole Sas Bahu Atyachar story, which we've kind of grown up hearing and watching and observing over the years. It's a very
Yeah.
progressive film in that sense,
In
which I
fact,
think,
I,
yeah.
I have some friends who don't get along well with their sasses, and they've taken them for the film, saying, "Ki avi sasu bano."
Definitely. I think we can all very much take note. But I'm going to ask you as well, again, just to kind of follow up, why do you think it is so rare for a female producer to emerge? In cinema, in Gujarati cinema in particular, what is the main reason, do you think, behind that?
Um, there are not many female producers of my age. I haven't seen
Of your
any.
current generation.
But
Yeah.
like Aarti Vyas Patel, she is a senior female producer in Gujarati cinema. She has been, making films like Om Mangalam Singalam, Lavni Bhavai, and all of that. I think, you know, because it requires, and it's not just me. I'm not the only producer. Parthiv is with me.
Of
I
course.
don't know if I'd be able to do this alone. I
Sure.
need Parthiv to be there to, be like the support in terms of the financial and the logistical part of it. I'm more of the creative force. So both of us together have this yin and yang situation, which kind of helps helm the project. So
Yes.
yeah, so in that sense, but also I believe that we thankfully belong to a generation where if you have the conviction and of course the support, then if you can make the stories that you want to. It's that era. We are in that era, and it's just about working hard and hitting hitting the opportunity when it strikes.
And I think am a sucker for seeing films which showcase vulnerable people but yet finding strength. And I think, if we look at Mongi and Baiji, both the lead characters are pretty much broken, but yet they find that formidability within themselves and also hear their avaz within. So I guess Ratna Ben, how has doing a film like Kutch Express, I guess, helped you to understand human vulnerability a lot more closely?
It's always something that is very attractive to watch in a story, vulnerability. And it makes for great drama, even in our film. Mongi is not what you would call technically vulnerable. I mean, not vulnerable in the way that an oppressed person would be vulnerable. But Mongi is a representation of the kind of a society that we have set up. Baiji has the foresight, the character of Baiji has the foresight to see that this society is not going to work for the future and that change is needed. so far, I've always heard this and I've always hated it being said that a woman's worst enemy is another woman.
Mm.
Really, I mean, it makes my blood boil that so many women actually agree with this statement. But their lived experience has shown that they've had trouble with mothers, they've had trouble with mothers-in-law, and various other women that they work around. There's a lot of pettiness, definitely. But it's not that men who work with other men don't have that pettiness. I mean,
Yeah.
you would know better.
Yeah.
Everyone in a workspace has issues of all kinds. Living together causes problems. But the one big difference is that women are the guard dogs of patriarchy. We are the ones who are enforcing the rules. We are sort of, first of all, we have to accept those rules. Two, we have to see to it that younger people in the family also accept it. And then we have to enforce the rules. So we are really like, detention camp guards in many ways. That's how
Right.
society has created a space for an older woman within the family. Now, this is terrible. Not every older woman is like that, obviously. I
Mm.
mean, I've been lucky enough to meet dozens of older women who have been extraordinarily supportive, not only of me, but of many other friends that I know. So
Mm.
this is a myth that needs breaking. And I'm so happy that a film like Kutch Express has set out particularly to break this myth, to say that women can actually support each other. There's a line in the a film which I find absolutely beautiful. It says, "Ghagaroj ghagra nu bharat olkhe."
Yeah, yeah. Mm.
And that sense of feminine support that I see all around me in society, I don't see reflected in television. I don't see it reflected in film a lot of the times. So more power to a film like Kutch Express, that we are able to make this kind of a statement, to
Mhm.
talk about something that is rampant, quite honestly, women getting on with each other, that's rampant.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yet, all popular culture tells us that women are adversaries. They constantly pull each other down. They're little bitches who go kitch, 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 kitch all the time. So I really love the debunking of that myth. So
yes.
I feel that that's one of the big one of the big क्या कहते हैं, contributions that film can make, any
Mhm.
kind of art can make, that it pushes the envelope. It makes things which are not so acceptable, acceptable. And it
Yes.
makes you think again. So that's why I see a film like Kutch Express as so important.
Mhm.
On the other hand, there's something like Happy Family, which is the other end of the spectrum. It's completely crazy, zany, silly for a lot of times. But all the same, it has a sense of establishing just that.
Yeah.
Women get on with each other. All
Mhm.
the women in that series, unlike an average television show, all the women in our web series get on with each other. How fantastic is that?
I think every aspect of it, even putting together the film was, there were, it was like, heart wrenching in the sense that I'm a very hard person, and everything that I do, I do with a lot of my emotion, and there's a lot of drama involved. So I'm always involved in that part of the process of production. So even the setting up of the story, and every discussion and every session we had with the writers, and we rewrote the whole story and all of that. So I think I was vulnerable at literally every aspect. But by the time the film came on floor, I was ready for Mogi. I was like,
Right.
okay, I'm just like ready, because I'd been like beaten to a pulp, but in a good way. Because in a good way, because you need to kind of uh, be like that, and yet have this strong sense of, okay, it's going to happen, but also this whole thing of, let's see where it goes. And I think that aspect with Mongi, I love the fact that she doesn't really have to raise her voice, or she doesn't really have like a talwar in her hand, and she's not going all out and saying मैं ये कर दूंगी मैं वो कर दूंगी नहीं. When her husband holds her hand really hardly, very strongly, and yells at her saying કે અભણને શું ખબર પડે કે કામ કરે ત્યારે શું, and she's like, તમે કઈ કર્યું નથી તો આટલી રાડો કેમ પાડો છો?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
that one line she says, that too very, just to whisper. But so you see that she does have a sense of self, which she is putting on the back burner for the people she loves.
Hmm.
It's only at a much later point in the film that you realize that no, that sense of self has to come to the fore. It cannot be on the back burner forever. And that realization that YG gives her
Mhm.
uh, is her turning point.
Think as artists, you both have been popular with other characters. I mean, of course, be it Maya Sarabhai or Gulal. And I've obviously had the pleasure of growing up with seeing your works, and I'm sure so many other people have. But as actors, do you find it difficult to balance that image created by your work and then your respective identities as actors and as people? Do you find it difficult to find that fusion?
So I think it's a good question you asked, because what happens with characters like, for example, Gulal, it wasn't a film which was shot over like maybe a month or a month and a half. It was a serial that went on for a full year, where I played this character which was totally different from me. And at one point, I did become like her. I became Gulal
Wow.
because I was living, breathing, eating, sleeping. Literally, only sleeping was without her. Everything else was in Gulal mode. Um, but what do you do? You're in a profession where you're doing it 12 to 14 hours a day. You're dressing up like that character. You're becoming that character. So what I would do after like realizing that this is not how it should be, because one needs to switch off as well, and it might just like drive you crazy if you're just living and breathing like this person, is that I would just go home and then I'd be like, let's not talk about work. Work was over like an hour ago, and I'm just going to do things which are totally different from what this character's going to do. Because I remember at one point I had a manager. Like I had this woman who approached me to become my manager, and she'd seen me as Gulal on the show. So she really thought I was uneducated. I was from a village. So when she spoke to me on the phone and I spoke to her in English, she said, "Oh, you know how to talk in English?" I said, "Yeah." That's when I realized that a TV character, has such an impact on people and the way they perceive you. They think you're the character. Which is why I have tried to make sure that whatever I choose is different from whatever I have done as an actor as well. So one can't really slot me in that sense. I mean, that's been my attempt.
Very,
That's what I
very.
was about. That's what had slipped my mind. See, for me, theater helped a great deal because I was simultaneously doing theater in Mumbai, and
Mm.
in fact, I was doing much more of that. I got very little work early on, and the work I got was sort of iconic, but I don't think at that time this whole social media world and the focus on you and the focus on the celebrity and all that was so prevalent. It was much less. So also I was learning on the job. I knew nothing about comedy. I was completely at sea. So I was so busy trying to figure out what I was doing there that I didn't have time to react to all this. And uh, I I never did a soap like she did. Pansi. Living with a soap is another kettle of fish altogether. I had time to go away, and I had a very happy and very busy life outside of acting. Also, I enjoyed my family thoroughly. Thoroughly, I enjoyed having my children and spending time with them. I enjoyed the work I do with an NGO. I've been working with them for 30 years. So that work was very satisfying, is still very satisfying. So these are the kind of things that fed me. I did not buy into the idea of me as a star. And I never had a PR person. I never had a manager, and I never will. I think those people are responsible for ruining many, many uh, actors' mental situation. That's not the way to live. Scrabbling, hustling,
Mhm.
that's not nice.
You know, it's a very interesting point you've made there, Ratnaben, because quite a lot of times when I've interviewed actors, especially of this current generation, I've often asked them about this whole balance of, again, social media influx, digital media era, how sad, like how difficult it is for obviously people to stay relevant in today's day and age, because there's that sense of competition all the time. Because, I mean, as an influencer myself, like, of course, no disrespect to our community whatsoever, because, it takes a lot of dedication. That's an art in itself. But, it's often quite hard, isn't it, for actors to get their voices heard. They often have to use social media nowadays to promote that. So, I mean, Ratnaben, for you, I mean, do you not ever find? I mean, it must be quite tough though, right, for you to maintain that stance and to not budge, and because obviously it's one thing, I guess, having those values and sticking by them, but then also when the generation around you is moving, it must be difficult for you to
It's
find that.
easier for me. I'm doing it at this age. I'm at a certain stage in my career. But if I was starting out today, I really wouldn't know how to begin and what to do. I would have to do and take advantage of these kind of new technologies. And that's part of the job. I understand that. I don't have to buy into that, in my head. That's where the dangerous part comes in. When
Yeah.
I refuse to think for myself. That's a big problem. Young girls today have a stylist to tell them what to wear. They have interior designers or whatever to tell them what their home should look like. They have somebody writing smart lines so that they can, speak and sound interesting. Everything, you're entirely manufactured. Where are you? How do you hold on to you? And all of us have to find our own way of doing it. There's no one way. And we all have to do it because we have to use the benefits of this way of communicating with large numbers of people at the same time. And sometimes you have something to say and you want to get across. But that should not become a daily, hourly, moment by moment experience in my life. I wouldn't be able to work otherwise. So I guess all of us have to find our balance.
Whenever I hear Ratna Bain and when I see her, it's so refreshing because Ratna Bain, when she says things like, I was so happy with my family and I had a thriving life outside of an acting career, and and she's so open about the fact that she didn't get that kind of work in mainstream when she was younger and she's getting more work now. It's just great to hear that kind of a narrative because people don't talk about it that much. It's all about, oh, you have to make it in the game when you're younger. Like people tell me, somebody told me like a couple of months ago, Mansi, anyway, time is running out for you. And I'm like, what? I have Ratna Bain. I'm seeing Ratna Bain doing so well. Like, I'm
Somebody told me very early on in my career, do you want to be an actress forever? Or you want to be an actress until you get married? And I realized, that's true, that's how most women looked at acting in my
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
कि अभी 4 5 10 साल कर लूंगी मैं acting, फिर शादी करके बच्चा पैदा करूंगी, then I'll sit
yeah,
at home.
yeah.
That was the mindset. And I realized I want to be an actress forever. I want to act till I can. So in that case, I have to look at it in a different way. I can't look at it from the point of view of youth and this
Yeah.
moment of excitement. I can't. I have to think of myself in a long-term process.
And because of that conviction and that the long-term process that you're talking about, Ratna, I mean, you can age so gracefully and not succumb to a lot of the pressures that maybe, an actress might succumb to. And these days, those pressures are crazy. There's
Incredible,
social
incredible.
media, there's this whole pressure to look a certain way. And I mean, it's just going to another level. And this whole aspect of what you said about where do you find yourself? What is you? That you it's rare, and the people who hold on to it are the ones who are unique. I feel they are the ones who have like a distinctive personality, and they are the ones who are iconic.
Right. I think you've both been very resilient. That's the best way I can describe it. So tell me, what gives you strength in life, Ratnaben?
That I have the support of a very, very intelligent and very warm, affectionate family. I've always been able to take my family's love and support for granted. And I give them that kind of love and support from me. So it is something that it feeds my soul, it feeds my everything. That's the big one. And two, that I do think of myself in the world. I don't think of myself in a career, if I can make that distinction. You know, I think the people I look up to, the women I looked up to, and the men were people who excelled in their careers, but they also were very special people. And that is what prompts me and inspires me. That can I be the kind of person that I really want to be? I'm not very religious. I'm not at all religious, in fact. But I have been brought up as a Hindu. So if you are to say that God is within you, then what is that God? To me, that God is probably the best actor in the world, in the universe, in the, just the best, best, best. In my entire life, I would only want to strive to be that, no? That gives me some purpose. Then I can make a connect with God. So that's what I mean, that for me, living a life is as important as having a career. And luckily for me, I've been extraordinarily lucky. I've always said this. I have been able to manage that balance. I didn't have to hustle for a living. That's something that can be soul deadening. I've seen so many people completely fade because of it.
Right.
So, the kind of people who start thinking, basically the ones who believe in their own myth, the guys or women who believe the press.
Okay.
We all have a press. I mean, actually physical press or a press in our head. We are doing things to impress XYZ all the time. And if that becomes your focus, if that becomes the way you want to live your life, looking outward all the time, and you will be constantly in a state of extreme discomfort and very vulnerable, because somebody is always going to be better than you. So that's what, just being able to tune out of that and focus within and focus on me. That's what I feel that Mansi and I are. I mean, Mansi too is not a spring chicken. I'm way past my sell-by date in average terms. But the fact is that we are still here.
Yeah.
And we are here because we are able to do something that our faces and our pretty bodies or pretty hair doesn't depend on. I mean, we don't depend on all that. There's something in us. We have grown as people. We have grown as actors. I've seen Mansi earlier, and I've seen the way in which she has developed as an actor. And I know my own development. I know how far I have come. And that is the thing that gives me satisfaction. Not the awards, not the money, not the fame, not the, etc. But the fact that I have grown, that gives me great satisfaction.
Right. I think, Mansi, I wanted to ask you actually, if you could also maybe give a bit of a two-part sort of answer, if that's possible, because I know they're kind of pressed for time. But I think, number one, what gives you strength in life? I think the second part is, of course, Gujarati cinema is evolving as an industry, and how. Like, I'm so proud to be a Gujarati, and I'm so proud that આજે હું કહી શકું કે આપણું industry હવે globally સરસ રીતે represent કરે છે આપણા culture and આપણે જો સંસ્કૃતિનું, and I'm very proud of that. But what do you think will also give momentum to this growth and emergence that we're seeing?
Okay, so to answer your first question, I think it is my family, especially my mom and my grandmom. I've grown up with two very strong women, and they have their strengths in a very, not in the conventional sense of this is what a strong woman should be. And that is what, when Ratna Ben says, I really resonate with it, that women of the world, that aspect of, women who are, they are women of the world, they've lived a life, and that has always inspired me. And I've always grown up, even my gurujis, Madhubala Tai, all the music gurujis that I had were women who were very strong artists, who were trying to, make a living at the age of 45, 50, 55. When I was in, school, and I could see how hard they were working, trying to retain their voice. So, I've subconsciously been impacted a lot by that. My husband is a very strong sense of support for me. Being an artist himself, even though I'm not from this industry, he is a singer. He's not an actor, so he doesn't really understand this. But for him to give me that space to explore, so that is a big sense of support. So I think without that, it's very difficult to, have a long career and a consistently evolving career. And my yoga, I think my yoga practice, my spiritual dimension that I have, that really keeps me through it, through the days and the months when there is no work. And there are lots of times when there is no work, and all of us go through that at different phases. It's that which, it's the thought that okay, namna nathi, but fine, it'll happen. That's it.
That's it. No, definitely.
And yeah, about the Gujarati industry, I think yes, it is at an exciting time. I think there's lots of things happening even as we speak. Lots of projects that are coming our way, lots of scripts that I'm hearing which are not the conventional scripts at all. And I'm glad, because how many more love stories of a girl and a boy, them breaking up, can you see? Like
Yeah.
you need more things. There's so many more narratives that need to come out, and I want to make sure that I bring those out. And Kutch Express was, of course, the second one, but more. And as a producer, I think that is what my future, I mean, that's the path I want to tread on. And having said that, I remember around 15 years ago, when I was in my 20s, like 18, 19, speaking in Gujarati was not that cool. But I think now people kind of are talking in Gujarati, they want to hear Gujarati songs. More young people are coming for Navratri, so I think it's a good thing. Like, people are kind of realizing it's cool to speak in Gujarati as well. The cool
Yes.
And in
part
all,
was missing, when it
and
came to
in
the
many
language.
other regional languages, I
Yeah,
find that at the moment there is a buzz. The Tamilians are singing in their own voice. The
yeah,
Malayalis are singing in their own. It's really happy to be in a place where it's not all single focus. Otherwise,
yeah.
Hindi film, Hindi film, Hindi film. That
True.
was the only narrative as far as India was concerned. So
True.
I am enjoying it very much this
And
moment.
I read, I was watching Gurit Monga's interview on this, and she said, this is what India is. We are a land of so many languages. Why should it just be one? It has
Absolutely.
to be so many more languages coming out. And I think that time is now, it's just coming out beautifully, and it's very exciting, very exciting.
And I think
Sorry, I'd like to rain on the picnic for a second. Sorry, I'm always the Kale Zaban wali. But it needs to be said. We Gujaratis have been here before. There was a time when we really wrote well. We made very beautiful music. Our folk art is absolutely extraordinary. Our craft is fabulous. In Gujarat, I mean, every 100 kilometer, everything changes and becomes even more beautiful. It's a miraculously varied and beautiful state and culture and society. We are homogenizing it, though. We are making it all down to the disco dandiya mood in various ways. The humor is becoming cruder. I mean, it was always crude, but now there was a moment when I thought that the humor would take off a little bit, but I'm finding that the crudeness is coming back again. Anyway, these are parts of the journey. Every culture goes through that. We shouldn't become too satisfied. We've just made a couple of decent films so far. We're all patting ourselves on the back all the time. Much more needs to be done. Much more money needs to be put where it is required. That means producers have to become more intelligent. You don't find a producer like Mansi very often, Baba. This is an unusual thing. Producers only look at the money factor.
I must tell you, Ratna, I must say what a very senior director producer told me while Kutch Express had just released. I met him because he had offered me a film. So I met him for a meeting and he's like, જો માનસી આજકાલ છે ને, જો તમને બધાને લાગે કે બધું ચેન્જ થયું છે, પણ ગુજરાતી ઓડિયન્સ તો ગુજરાતી ઓડિયન્સ જ છે. અને તમે કોઈ ફિમેલ સેન્ટ્રિક ફિલ્મ બનાવો તો ન ચાલે, તમે પિક્ચરમાં કોર્ટ રૂમ ડ્રામા દેખાડી દો તો ન ચાલે, થ્રિલર દેખાડી દો તો ન ચાલે, બધાને ફેમિલી કોમેડી જ જોવે. And I'm like, you're saying this to me while I've produced a film which has literally all these things that you're talking about. I mean, it's not a drama, but what I'm trying to courtroom drama, but it has a female narrative. And so there are people who are thinking like that, Ratna, but there is a huge shift that is happening. There are people who are kind of making, and the humor also is kind of evolving in a very different way. There is the crass humor, yes, but like a couple of scripts that I've heard, and I'm like, oh wow, I never thought that people would think like this in a Gujarati film, which is refreshing. So yeah, it takes time to find a script like that. It's one in like 50 maybe, but that one happening.
I mean, even last year, we saw from Krishna Dev Yagnik had made a really good movie, Kudrado, which was like a political thriller. So I think it's definitely happening. I think we live in a very hopeless world, very honestly, generally. And I feel like that's why for us, especially as Gujaratis, because I think this is the real time where we have to genuinely be unified, and I think always look optimistically, because it's very interesting, Ratna, when you said that, because I live in UK, and I there are many UK singers, influencers, actors who I've met and who I'm friends with, and they are so passionate about the culture, and they wear it on their sleeve. And
They do. I've seen that.
yeah, you've seen, Mansi, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think actually what's happening now is that influence is coming back, but it's not going to be very short. I think it's going to be very short lived, because see, once people are awakened to the truth, to the reality of their roots, of their culture, પાછું સુવાનો time ના મળે ઓ લોકોને. Once they're awake, જાગી ગયા એટલે બસ જાગી ગયા. And I think it's kind of going through that phase.
જાગીને વિચાર કરીએ કે જાગીને ફક્ત ગીતો ગાઈએ? આપણે વિચારે કરવો જોઈએ. ગીતો તો ગાવા જ છે, 100% ગાવા છે,
Definitely.
પણ વિચાર પણ સાથે કરવાની બહુ આવશ્યકતા છે. We better be constantly careful.
Yeah.
And work towards self-refinement and self-education all the time. That's what the point I was trying to make.
Absolutely.
Sure, absolutely. And just quote scam 1992, risk hai to ishq hai. But what will be the next risk you would like to take forward as artists, actually? Ratnabir, would you like to go first?
I really would like to do a part now, because I've figured these kind of roles out now. The cute old woman, the angry old woman, the sad old woman. I've been there, done that. But what I would really like to do is a person with a real problem. What if there's a physical disability?
Oh my
What
God, that was my answer. That was my answer.
Yes. Sorry.
Physical
But
disability.
that's the problem now. We all have to think like, I really I'd love to do an alcoholic, or a person who's actually going through, say, dementia. There's so many areas of life that I haven't explored. And as you know, acting is such a wonderful thing, because you can explore all kinds of ideas and never pay the consequences. So what better can you hope for? You try out all these lives. So hopefully something will come around.
Okay, well, hopefully we can manifest this for Ratnabin through this interview. What about you, Mansi? Would you like to add anything to that?
Absolutely. In fact, there is one script which I have heard, which I really want to work on, and it's about physical disabilities, and about the fact that we have such a cliche when it comes to, if you're dealing with somebody who has a physical disability, the first reaction you have is, oh, you become very sympathetic. But what if that's turned around and that person is not at all somebody who's asking for sympathy and is very sarcastic? It totally defies the stereotype of what a physically disabled person could be. That element, which I have found this very interesting script on, I was like, oh my God, this is what I want to do. Absolutely. So I'm gearing up to work on that next. And yeah, because this whole prettiness and this whole looking good, it's so easy, but just to take that away and to like get down and dirty is something I would love to do with whatever the character allows.
So I've got to ask you, this role that you're doing or you're considering for this physically challenged, of a physically challenged role, is that in Gujarati or Hindi or any other Indian language? I've got to ask you.
No, it's too soon for me to talk about it. It's just like one narration I've had, but I'll tell you later when it does happen.
Dari gayi, very bad.
I don't want to jinx it by saying too much too soon,
No.
These things take time, so yeah.
No, absolutely. But look, I think on that note, it's been such a pleasure and honor to have Ratna Bin and of course Mansi on Filme Shilmy. It's so exciting that Kutch Express is premiering at the UK Asian Film Festival, and trust me, it's a film not to be missed. It's such a beautiful cast, and it will definitely make you very proud of being Gujarati and seeing how we've evolved as an industry and how we continue to evolve. So thank you so much, Ratna Ben. Thank you, Mansi, for joining me. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anuj. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.